Yeah.
Hello,
Is
I'm
everybody
Emily
good?
Freeman. I'm happy to
All
be
right.
here with Ralph, George, and Bridget, talking about all things AKS. Thank you for joining me.
For having us.
First,
Thank you
I
for
want to
having
ask,
us.
is Kubernetes the answer to all problems?
Why not?
I think it's asking the wrong question, right? Because the question is, what problem are you trying to solve?
Yes.
You're kind of putting a solution in front of the problem. It does solve a lot of problems if you use it correctly, but it definitely is not the solution for all problems.
What are the problems that Kubernetes is the best to address?
Well, again, as Bridget said, you need to ask yourself, what are your current pains? So is your current pains that you cannot roll out quick enough? Is your current pains that you are too slow to get releases out? Is your current pains that your productivity? Is your current pains the way you cannot scale fast enough to accompany your business? If that's the case, yeah, Kubernetes can help a lot with those. If you have none of those, then you need to really start considering what do you need to solve your problems.
Yeah, well, like any tool, the fact that it's very powerful does come with certain education costs, right? So if you don't, to George's point, if you don't need those costs, if you're already doing good things and getting better, then you've already solved your problem, and Kubernetes is just going to bring more work before it brings any other benefits anyway.
Absolutely.
I think probably also, since we're talking about infrastructure in general, I would say that there is a complexity tax to anything that you're adding. So the cognitive overhead of something new might be not what your organization is ready for if what it needs to do is just start with Azure pipelines and get CI/CD processes working correctly before you introduce container orchestration.
Yes. So in other words, you should be putting the process before the tooling.
Yeah.
AKS is a managed Kubernetes service. What exactly does that mean?
Well, it means that we take care of a lot of the big burdens of running Kubernetes. The first one, of course, being setting it up, configuring it, getting it to run properly, but also then actually doing the day 2 operation task of managing the control plane, kind of the master brain of Kubernetes. And we take care of that action for you. We take care of etcd, the storage that backs up Kubernetes desired state. And we take care of a lot of the normal tasks that you need to do, upgrade, scale, patch the nodes. We really help with those tasks and make it very easy for the users to consume them.
I mean, the interesting thing about all of the things that George is talking about is that most of these are infrastructure management tasks. They're things you do when you create the cluster. They're configurations you establish in the beginning, or configurations you're going to change about the cluster's resources itself. But notice he didn't talk that much about the application work, which is different, because once it's there, most of the operations that are managed for you at the infrastructure level by AKS don't have much to do necessarily. There's some overlap with the actual deployment and operations related to the applications that are deployed on it. So that's a little bit different.
Okay.
Yeah.
It might also be valuable for organizations to think, do we want to get a whole bunch of experts in managing the Kubernetes control plane? Because that's cool. You know, maybe we're going to have those people go work for a cloud. But otherwise, what value does it add to our organization to have people put all of their energies into something that is basically undifferentiated heavy lifting from the point of view of what value it brings to their business?
Yes. Now, I've heard multiple mentions of a control plane. Can you help everyone understand, like, what is exactly a control plane?
Yeah, so think of Kubernetes again. It's a container orchestrator. So it helps you automatically decide where you're going to put your applications on your cluster. To do that, it kind of relies on a number of mechanisms and control and basically components that it has. And it has those in a special set of VMs, which are called the master VMs, and that together form the control plane. Those master VMs have things like the scheduler that help you actually decide where to put the applications. They have things like the controller manager that help you reconcile that desired state that I keep mentioning. So you can tell it, okay, I want 3 actual instances of my application. That reconciler loop basically is going to make sure that you always have those 3 instances running no matter what. And then it has the desired state store, which are an important component of the control plane as well.
That's excellent. Thank you. AKS virtual nodes were announced as generally available a few days ago. What does that mean? How does it benefit everyone?
Virtual nodes are a really interesting implementation and can be potentially extremely useful in many circumstances. Just to digress just a little bit, the agents that handle most of the workloads, the kubelet is the concept and the API that needs to be implemented for a VM to join a cluster, right? And you can actually use the open source virtual kubelet facade and build an implementation that knows how to associate itself with the masters, the cluster itself. Virtual Node is an implementation for that built on ACI into Azure Container Instances inside and associated with all the features of AKS. What that gives you is the ability to immediately scale out your nodes in an almost infinite way because the node itself is virtual. When you schedule containers on that node, those containers are going to be rerouted by the virtual kubelet implementation and hosted on ACI. But you don't know that. You don't care. It allows you very rapid and essentially infinite bursting capability without worrying about adding other static nodes that take maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, depending on the workload size. That's a wonderful way to burst out very rapidly, pay by the second for the burst, and then be able to look at scaling out your nodes depending on whether the standing nodes, depending on whether you think that workload spike is going to continue or if it's going to fade away, then you just go ahead and let those resources get collected. You only paid for what you used.
Kind of bringing the best of Kubernetes and the best of serverless together and putting customer front and center for that experience.
That sounds like a win for everyone.
It is. And one of the interesting things is that another way to think about that feature set is that it allows you to have one Kubernetes cluster, a managed Kubernetes cluster, but you get to choose which type of billing for which workloads you can do. It's not so much about virtual nodes versus nodes. It's about should these workloads be billed by the second and should these workloads be billed by the month. And that gives you a lot of power when you look at it that way. It's a very different way of looking at it than looking at it from purely the technology standpoint.
Absolutely.
Oh, and if you have people who are saying to themselves, I want to be doing some serverless, like you can accommodate that hype-driven, resume-driven development that's happening there by saying, sure, absolutely. You have Kubernetes, you have serverless, like George said, together at last.
Yes, yes. I like that term, resume-driven development, which you wouldn't fault anyone for doing that. You can.
Everyone has motivations.
Exactly.
I think our motivation is to make sure that the customers can get everything they need to get done and want to get done as effectively as possible.
I love that. Azure Policy integration for Kubernetes was also announced.
Yeah, super excited about that. Customers we've been very, very keen on listening to customers' feedback. And it's been a constant ask to how can I enable my policies that I've been enabling in Azure for a long time and actually make them Kubernetes aware and make them across all my clusters. A very big one, very big ask is like, how can I make sure that my Kubernetes clusters will only get container images from the registries that I choose, that I design, and how can I make that enforce across all my clusters? So today, with the announcement of Azure Policy for Kubernetes, customers are able to go to the Azure Policy blade and just define their own Kubernetes policies, like the registry one, and be able to just say, all my clusters can only pull from this specific registry.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
The most common question I get when I'm out talking to engineers is, how do you take a 15-year-old monolithic application with tons of spaghetti code like dripped all over the place? How do you transition that into a microservice architecture, adding things that are those popular terms like Kubernetes and running it on AKS and Azure? Talk to me about that.
So it's a tricky question that people have poured lots of consultancy hours and dollars into. And maybe a good way to think of it is take it a step at a time. It's not that you're going to take your legacy monolith with all of its state needs and all of its inability to scale and like shove it into a container and run it on Kubernetes and hope nothing ever goes wrong with that container, because if it gets rescheduled, what's going to happen to the state? So it's not as simple as just putting it on Kubernetes. This is back to what problem are you trying to solve?
It's exactly that. It's like people approach the question in the sense like, how do I break down my monolith? Or why are you breaking it down? What problem are you trying to solve? Is it performance? Is it not performant enough? Is it not allowing you to deploy quick enough? What problem are you trying to solve? And based on that, that will actually guide your roadmap and your strategy very clearly. If your problem is you need to spread it across teams to evolve faster. If your problem is performance, that will actually guide your decision into what is the first step and the second step based on the problems you are facing today. And that should be what customers should be really looking into how, what is my first step? How should I do it? Yeah, look at what is bothering you the most and go from there.
Absolutely. As we sort of prepare to wrap up, what are the things you're most excited about with Kubernetes, AKS? What's coming down the road that?
Oh, shall I go first?
Yeah.
I actually am most excited about the ability to treat a cluster as entirely virtual. So, for example, we talked about virtual nodes that appear when you need them and others that are fixed. You're going to be able to, at some point, be able to just say, I want a magic cluster, and when I schedule it the way I want to schedule it and the way I want it built, it will happen. I'm looking forward to those kinds of features to be developed, and they'll come very rapidly. There are some actual concerns in the world, but I'm really looking forward to it.
That's amazing. Thank you. We'll be back with Christina after we take a quick break.